Coming up on College Football Live, Minnesota coach PJ Fleck joins us. He'll talk about the challenges ahead as the Big Ten gets set to return next month. And Purdue wide receiver Rondale Moore opted out last month. Will he change his mind? Rondale will announce his decision with us on College Football Live. Hello, everybody. I'm Wendy Nix. Tom Lukenbill and Rod Gilmore are here as well. Finally, the SEC will kick off its season this weekend. We've got the Big Ten to look forward to next month, the weekend of October 24th. So that leaves the Pac-12, the only Power 5 conference yet to have a plan in place to return to football. However, later today, Pac-12 presidents and chancellors are expected to vote on a fall football season. Last month, the same CEO group voted unanimously to postpone all sports, including football and basketball, through the end of the year. And this tweet from John Wilner of the Pac-12 Hotline newsletter ahead of the Pac-12 vote. California health officials have committed to expanding cohorts to a workable number for football practice, according to a source. This, he says, is a big deal. It was the last real obstacle ahead. We're joined now by our college football reporter, Heather Dinich. And Heather, again, this meeting taking place a little later today. What is the expected outcome?
Well, Wendy, if they do return to play, if that is the vote, the dates that they are considering are October 31st or November 7th. And while those schools in California are trending in the right direction in terms of the government, local, city, state easing those restrictions, just hours before this meeting is expected to start, the county of Boulder in Colorado announced that Colorado has to pause its practices for 2 weeks. So now those university presidents and chancellors have to consider that school, because ideally they would like 6 weeks for their teams to prepare for this season. And if Colorado can't even practice until October 8th, that basically eliminates October 31st or November 7th, at least for them starting. So that's a question mark that they'll have to answer tonight too.
One more obstacle, Heather, thank you. And as we await the Pac-12's decision, we'll take a look at the rest of the Power 5. The ACC and Big 12 began play on the weekend of September 12th. Again, the SEC gets back to work this weekend, and the Big 10 is scheduled to return on October 24th. Speaking of the Big 10, Rondale Moore will be joining us shortly. But Rod, I'll start with you since you're out on the West Coast. Listen, what's been the state of those Pac-12 programs since the initial decision to postpone the season was made?
Yeah, things are a little different in California, as you know. And, you start with the presidents. Although we believe that they're going to go ahead with the restart, you never really know. Remember, Larry Scott said a while ago that if there are no students on campus, no classes, then there won't be football. The amateurism issue has always been there for the presidents. They like to treat students just like players, and so you really don't know what might happen. The other thing that comes up is if you start in November, you're not really going to be part of the college football playoff. So a lot of fans would say, why start, why play if you're not going to be a part of that? But the thing that's really been an issue is really how do you coordinate a start? Because not every school has been the same. Some schools, when they thought the season was done, allowed their players to go home because there was no classes on campus, no season to play for. They went home. So now they're bringing everybody back. Some schools are ready to go before others. So can you start on the same date with everybody? Probably not. Could there be a staggered start? You just heard Heather talk about Colorado. So we may see an October 31st start for some and maybe a November 7th for others. That's the latest that I've been made aware of, is that not every team's going to be ready to go at the same date.
Rod, when I hear October 31st or November 7th, that tells me that the Pac-12 is likely considering only playing 6, maybe 7 games maximum. I don't think you're looking at 8 to 10 games because, to your point, you would essentially be playing for nothing. I don't think anybody wants to put their athletes through that. So the only thing I would probably counter with Colorado is if you pull most of these coaches and you told them, hey, listen, you're going to be able to start practicing on October 8th, and then you have an opportunity to play a game on October 31st. Could you do that? I think the answer would be overwhelmingly yes. I think you could get a team on the field in that amount of time. But I just think with these start dates that they're proposing, we're going to be looking at a shortened season, fewer amount of games, so that maybe they can be considered for college football playoff inclusion, even if they don't have a team that qualifies.
Again, the Pac-12 meeting
Yeah,
later today, the
I don't know
last
if
Power
trainers will-
5 conference to announce their decision. Rod, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I don't know that trainers and coaches are going to be on board with only having 3 or 4 weeks to get guys ready. They're concerned about injuries and the like, and they've made the presidents aware of that they need 6 weeks at a minimum to get folks ready.
All right, we'll wait and see. So many obstacles. We've all had to stay flexible. There's no question about that. We'll switch gears now. Since PJ Fleck took over at Minnesota, boy, the Gophers have been rowing the boat. Last season, they won 11 games, their most in a season since 1904. That year, by the way, they went 13-0. The 11th win came in the Outback Bowl over number 9 Auburn, the first time in program history they'd won 4 straight bowl games. And good news for Coach Fleck. His star receiver, Rashard Bateman, has opted back in for the season. This is, however, contingent on gaining the necessary eligibility clearance. So how has the PJ Fleck era been? Well, at Minnesota so far, he became just the second coach in program history to win 20 games in his first 3 seasons at the helm. The only other coach to do that in the program's 138-year history, Dr. Henry L. Williams, who won 28 games from 1900 to 1902. Happy to have with us now Golden Gophers head coach PJ Fleck. And coach, first of all, congratulations. Everybody happy to see the Big Ten returning. But walk me through, if you will, the range of emotions you had to have felt from perhaps postponing, then canceling a season to hopefully a return next month.
Oh, do we actually have to relive those feelings again? Man, I tell you, there were some highs, there were some lows. It was interesting, but I think no matter what, when you look back at all the decisions that were made, whether people agree or disagree, the health and the safety and the well-being of all our student athletes was at the forefront of every decision, whether people agree, disagree.
Well, Coach, you referenced the safety, and every conference has different protocols. They're pretty stringent in the Big Ten, understandably so. But having said that, the hope is to play 8 games over the course of 8 weeks. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there. There's also a 21-day quarantine in the Big Ten. So how do you intend, your program in particular, to manage the things that have to happen to keep playing?
Yeah, first and foremost, it's education, education, education. You know, we don't have this bubble we can put them in. We have to create a synthetic bubble based on education. Our players have been through COVID now. When you kind of look at it for 4 or 5 months now, you've been able to learn. You've been able to see what you do right, what you don't do right, how you can fail and grow, what works for you, what works for your roommates. And to be honest with you, it comes down to being the most mature football team you can be. We define maturity as when doing what you have to do becomes doing what you want to do. We told them the fun you should be having is right there on the football field, period. The only place you should be having the most fun is right here on the football field with us. If you want to do all the other things, we're going to have a really, really difficult season because there's going to be a lot of people who don't play. So education, education, education is critical.
Well, you're right. And a good piece of information for the program and for you and hopefully for the player personally is that wide receiver Rashard Bateman has decided, or hopes to anyway, opt back in. Again, opting out when the belief was there wouldn't be a season in the Big Ten. But now you have to wait for eligibility, for clearance from the NCAA. So what's his status right now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of players in the same boat that he is. You know, I mean, Rashard Bateman, one of the best players in the country, opted out for all the right reasons in a time where there was really uncertain times ahead of us. And really the narrative through the media and the narrative of what everyone was saying was there wasn't going to be a season. Here's a young man with asthma. Here's a young man that's he got a really, really bright NFL future. We're talking tens of millions of dollars. And then there is no really hope to look at. And when you look at the safety precautions at that place, the popular answer, rightfully so, by the doctors and everybody in charge was, I don't know. And now he wants to return. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks, but hopefully we find out something soon.
All right, Coach, I have to ask you before I let you go, since we hope to see the Big Ten again returning the weekend of October 24th. You are typically among the most fashionably attired on the sideline. Where's that inspiration come from? Anywhere in particular?
I get asked that all the time. And a lot of people don't know where it comes from. You know, I don't come from a long lineage of coaches in my family. There were 2 people that really changed my life that gave me a start in this profession. One was Mike Nolan, who wore a suit and tie on the sideline. He was my head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. His dad, Dick Nolan, also wore a tie. But if it wasn't for Mike Nolan, who thought I'd be a really good football coach, I wouldn't have had an opportunity. but I want to make sure that every day on game day, they know that I'm thinking about them and I wouldn't be there without them.
A fitting tribute. I had a feeling it might be traced back to some of those guys. Coach, listen, best of luck getting ready for the season. We look forward to watching.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having us on. Row the boat, Sky Ma. Go Gophers. Thanks.
Well, we talked about Rashad Bateman. How about Purdue's Rondale Moore, another 10 receiver from the Big Ten, weighing his future? He'll join us live and tell us what he plans to do this season. Coming up.
Welcome back to College Football Live, presented by Dr. Pepper.
Welcome back to College Football Live. Purdue wide receiver Rondale Moore opted out of the season last month. He was a first-team All-American selection as a true freshman in 2018, and his 2019 season cut short after suffering a hamstring injury against Minnesota. In 2018, Rondale joined some elite company, a first-team All-American, becoming just the third true freshman to receive that honor. Joining pretty good players here, Adrian Peterson did it in 2004, and a guy named Herschel Walker back in 1980. And Rondale is joining us now, and again, having opted out of the season for Purdue when the understanding was there wouldn't be a season. He's back with us, and the question now, Rondale, what are your plans going forward for this football season?
Yeah, so for me, I think the whole decision behind me opting out was the uncertainty. And to, secure my safety and my mother's safety, it was important for me to kind of dig deeper and find out some more information. And, hopefully the Big Ten would come to terms and find a way to get things done and we'd have a season. So the Big Ten found a way to consistently test and have safety protocols that made me feel safe. So I want to thank them, and I want to thank Purdue as well for keeping me safe as I've been here. So I've decided to opt back in and, play for the Bullets this season.
Well, I know that's good news for Boilermaker fans everywhere. Listen, let me ask you this. You've got a lot to accomplish this year on and off the football field. What are your specific goals?
I think it's important for me to come back and compete and just show what a competitor I am. I think it's important for me to go out there with my teammates and fulfill the promise I made to them when I came here as a freshman, and my coaches as well. So I think for us, it's to go win some games, have a chance to compete at a championship, go out there and do what we do. So I'm excited.
Listen, you hope to have a long football future, so let's play a little fill in the blank. I want to show, and I being you, I want to show NFL teams that what?
I'm the best receiver in America. I have the ability to line up outside, inside. I can run past you, make you miss. I'm dynamic in the return game. So with that being said, I think I'm the best receiver in America.
All right, Rondale, we'll wait and hear what the NCAA says. Best of luck. We look forward to seeing you on the field soon. Of course, the season's set to kick off the weekend of October 24th. Rondale, hardly the only person in this position. He is among a couple of highly touted Big Ten players who have opted or hope to opt back in this season. A few notable players to do so. Rashad Bateman of Minnesota. We talked to his head coach, along with Shaun Wade and Wyatt Davis of Ohio State. So again, Rondale Moore hoping that he can opt back into the season. Rod, I'll start with you. What do you think about that choice?
Bravo, bravo. It's a smart decision. It makes a lot of sense. I was at the fourth game of last season when they were playing Minnesota. He got hurt, and it looked awful when it happened. The stadium went stone cold silence, and we were all worried about his future. Would he be able to play again? It looked really terrible. So to have him healthy is a great thing. But listen, he's got a lot to prove. He's only played one full season of college football. And as an undersized receiver, everyone is worried about your durability. So his coming back and proving that he can stay healthy and that he can play, and 114 catches in 2018 when he played, Lugs, says that he can play. He's an All-American, but he has a lot to show. His coming back is great for college football. I love it when we get our stars back into college football. I think it's great for the game.
I think he made a smart decision. He listened to the right people. As you mentioned, when you're size deficient and you have a history of injury, you've got to come back and prove that durability is the most important ability. He may very well be the best wide receiver in college football, but prove that you can stay on the field for that length of time and your draft stock's going to skyrocket. And I think it's really important to note, too, that you've got two Ohio State Buckeyes in Sean Wade and Wyatt Davis, two potential first-rounders at what I would term to be value premium positions. Corners, offensive linemen, they're not growing on trees. They are, I think, really upgrading their market value by getting back on the field to have a future evaluation of games meaningful that count. So very excited to see Ohio State get two playmakers back as well.
I agree with both of you. It's fun to see these guys opt back in or stay in the football, the college game as long as they can. Listen, time now to take a look at our Dr. Pepper Championship Drive Game of the Week. And up this week, the preview, ESPN's FPI, Oklahoma State has a 65% chance to beat West Virginia on Saturday. The Cowboys, by the way, have won 6 of 8 meetings since the Mountains moved to the Big 12 prior to the 2012 season. And Tom, what are you watching for? We got West Virginia, Oklahoma State. Who caught your eye?
Two things with Oklahoma State. Who's going to line up at quarterback? Is it going to be Shane Illingworth, the true freshman that came in and played very, very well down the stretch, finishing 4 for 5? Is there going to be that man right there, Spencer Sanders, who I think is a guy that's really dynamic with his legs, so you lose a little bit of that element when he's not in the game. Secondly, and maybe most importantly, Chuba Hubbard only rushed for 93 yards last week versus Tulsa. 77 of those yards came after contact, which means most of that contact happened at or behind the line of scrimmage. They have got to get the run game going, and I don't know if we know enough yet about West Virginia. Really strong on the ground a couple of weeks ago versus Eastern Kentucky. Jarrett Dagey did a nice job, very efficient, 19 of 25, no turnovers, 3 touchdowns through the air. They might be a bit of an enigma. Oklahoma State's got to find a way to bounce back. That was a lackluster performance under their standards.
Lugs, the eyes are on Oklahoma State. I mean,
Yep.
We've had talk all offseason about that offense and about how explosive they're going to be and that they have a shot at the Big 12 championship. Not if you don't get Chuba Hubbard going. And that revolves around Sanders at quarterback. When he was out, they were hamstrung on the offensive side of it. So this game, we need to see that offense if we're going to believe that they can really take a shot at Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I think for the health and of the conference, it's important because you need somebody looking like Oklahoma and Texas and having a real battle in that conference. Hasn't been a positive 2 weeks the last few with losses to Sunbelt teams.
Are you talking about the Sun Belt beating up on them?
What's that?
The Sun Belt beating up on the Big 12.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing, yes.
I think that's what
so.
He's talking about, Rod. That's exactly what he's talking about. Listen, seeing is believing, and we'll see what we see Saturday, 3:30 Eastern. Still to come on College Football Live, we remember the late, great Hall of Famer Gale Sayers. The Kansas Comet passed away earlier this week, and oh man, what a legacy he left behind. King of the number 12 Hurricanes host Florida State at Hard Rock Stadium tomorrow. The Canes have won the last 3 against the Noles after losing 7 straight back to 2010. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on ABC and the ESPN app. Time now, though, for our weekend wake-up, brought to you by Wendy's Breakfast. Miami and Florida State have one of the best rivalries in college football, and since 2000, 16 meetings between these two have been decided by 1 score. That's the most of any matchup in the FBS during that span. Hall of Fame running back Gale Sayers passed away earlier this week at the age of 77. He had been battling dementia. The Kansas Comet was a 2-time All-American at Kansas and scored an NFL record 22 touchdowns as a rookie with the Chicago Bears, including a record-tying 6 in 1 game. Injuries cut his pro career short, but what a player, what a man he was, Rod Gilmore. What will you remember most?
Well, I remember as a kid, we didn't have a lot of college football games on TV. We had a lot of highlights. And so I remember seeing him and the long runs from scrimmage, the incredible punt returns. And a lot of us felt like, gosh, I want to be like him. And so as a college football fan, you knew about him and you watched those highlights. But the country didn't really get to know him until the TV movie came out, Brian's Song, that chronicled his relationship with Brian Piccolo and his battle with cancer. That's when the country found out about him. And anyone who watched that movie cried. I mean, I don't know anyone who didn't cry watching that movie. Lubes, you cried, didn't you? I know you did.
Absolutely. I remember my parents saying, you have to watch this movie when I was a child. And then growing up the son of a coach and being able to be around Marshall Faulk when he was in college. And I remember how effortless Marshall Faulk was. And then you go back and you look at tape of Gale Sayers. He was like silk in cleats. He looked like he was running on clouds. And as I got into my teenage years and got to see Marshall Faulk, I was like, he looks like Gale Sayers. So, you know, what a remarkable life. And Brian's song, obviously, everybody cried.
Yeah.
Everybody cried, and if you haven't watched Brian's song, do so now. Perfect time. Again, the Pac-12 meeting today to decide on their season. We will talk about it tomorrow, the MAC voting as well.